This is Pittsburgh Sunday Morning. My name's Sean McDowell. If you'd like to be a guest on the program, if you're the member of a group or organization that has an upcoming cause or event that the listening community would be interested in, doesn't necessarily have to be a local cause or event, doesn't even have to be a nonprofit cause or event either, contact me. My name again is Sean McDowell, and my email address is my name, and you spell Sean, S-E-A-N, Sean at DVE.com. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Welcoming back to Pittsburgh Sunday Morning, it's our friends from the ALS Association, Western PA chapter. It's the new executive director, Merritt Holland Spier, is here. Hi, Merritt.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, the Western PA chapter was founded in 1982, www.cure, and then the number 4, ALS.org, 412-821-3254. The ALS Association is the only national not-for-profit health organization solely dedicated to the fight against ALS, again also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And the ALS Association covers all the bases as well: research, patient and community services, public education, and advocacy, and providing help and hope to those facing this terrifying disease, which we're going to be talking about this morning. And the Western PA chapter, and again, the new executive director of the Western PA chapter is with us this morning, Merritt Holland Spier. You serve 31 counties in the central western half of the state. Merritt, that's almost half of Pennsylvania, it seems like.
It is half of Pennsylvania. It is the western half of Pennsylvania, and about 300 people in the western half of PA have ALS at any given time, and our services in particular serve about 150 of those people.
The ALS Association, the national office, and the Western PA chapter, they operate under a shared mission to lead the fight to cure and treat ALS through global cutting-edge research and to empower people with Lou Gehrig's disease and their families to live fuller lives by providing them with compassionate care and support. The Western PA chapter of the ALS Association focuses primarily on helping local patients and their families live with ALS, and the national office focuses primarily on research and advocacy. But I want to point out, and again, Merritt Holland Spier is here, new executive director of the ALS Association, Western PA chapter. But Merritt, you had worked at one time years ago for WQED TV here in Pittsburgh on the set of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
I did. I worked at QED on many fronts in production on Mr. Rogers.
Did you know Fred Rogers?
I did know Fred Rogers.
Oh, man. I never met him, and I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. But
he was exactly the kind of person that
he was on
TV.
Really?
And
wow.
He was a very, very good friend of mine and my family. He attended my wedding, and he's the kind of person, when you pass people in the hall and they say, "Hey, how are you?" and you go, "I'm fine." He was the kind of person who would say, "How are you doing?"
And he really meant it.
And he really meant it. And he would just sort of go, "Well, you know what? I'm having kind of a bad day." So, and he would listen. He was just a wonderful man.
Oh, Merritt Holland Spier, the new executive director of the ALS Association, had Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, at her wedding. And also in her career, Merritt
dating me a little bit.
Well, but Merritt has also had extensive experience and background working and coordinating community affairs, working in and coordinating these sorts of affairs between foundations and corporations and distinguished nonprofit agencies. And again, for the local Western PA chapter, ALS Association, www.cure4ALS.org, 412-821-3254. Maybe not everyone knows what ALS is exactly, Merritt. It's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, as we pointed out, and I had referred to it as a terrifying disease, which it is. Lou Gehrig was the famous New York Yankee who had to leave baseball because of this disease, and then he would die 2 years later from ALS, and that's almost frequently the lifespan from initial diagnosis. I think most people are gone within 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, people think that ALS is a very rare disease, but actually it has the same incidence as MS. It's just that people don't live as long. There's a longer lifespan with MS, and so the numbers of people living with that disease are larger than the number of people living with ALS. But the average lifespan after diagnosis is 2 to 5 years, and it is very, very sad. And it's shocking when you think that veterans and people who are serving our country are twice as likely to get ALS.
We're going to get to that. ALS, it's always fatal eventually, and it takes you down slowly because in the end, you're literally completely paralyzed. You can't move, you can't swallow, you can't breathe on your own, you can't talk, but it doesn't affect your mind at all or your hearing or your vision. So tragically, in the end stages of ALS, you're trapped within your body. You're fully conscious, but you're unable to move or talk or swallow or breathe on your own. And there's no treatment. There's no cure. There is a treatment, and yet everything is still in the investigative stages. Life expectancy, like Merritt and I were discussing, 2 to 5 years. The average cost of providing patient care to someone dealing with ALS is like $250,000 a year.
A year, yeah, about $250,000 a year, and insurance does not pay for a lot of the equipment and the things that people with ALS need on a regular basis, and that's where we step in and help a lot of these people, either by providing them with what they need until insurance kicks in, or if they don't have insurance, we have a loan closet with wheelchairs and communication devices and all kinds of things to help them. So,
and you mentioned MS, Merritt. ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, it's really difficult to diagnose, as MS is, because several other diseases mimic the symptoms of ALS. You have to go through a lot of medical tests, some of which are really uncomfortable, I can imagine. Now, I've been through a myelogram before, but also a spinal tap frequently to have a definitive diagnosis, which is difficult for ALS. Biopsies. The symptoms vary from person to person. Maybe some 30,000 people in the whole country have Lou Gehrig's disease. Some 15 new cases every day are diagnosed. 60% of the people with ALS, Merritt, are men, and it seems as if 93% of everyone, men and women with ALS, are Caucasian.
Yeah, we're not sure why that is. It's certainly, we talk about it as being a non-discriminatory disease. And it's all part of what's going into the research to try and figure out what causes this disease, what can we create to cure or at least extend the length of the life of someone with ALS.
The average age of diagnosis is 55, but ALS can strike someone in their 20s or maybe even their 30s. And again, there's no cure for Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And though there is developing treatment under investigation right now, ALS is pretty much a matter of compassionate caregiving as the disease progresses. www.cure4als.org, 412-821-3254. Merritt, the ALS Association nationally, it does a great job of lobbying Congress whenever they can in Washington, D.C., advocating for those with ALS, especially the veterans. And you referenced the veterans, and I guess it's been determined now over the last 5-7 years, if you're a veteran, and it doesn't matter if you served during wartime or if you never saw action in combat, veterans are twice as likely to develop ALS than any of the rest of us are.
I know. And that's very, very powerful statistic, and it's really hitting home with the lobbyists and legislatures. It's making them stand up and pay attention to this disease a little more. And it's also very, very sad. And nobody really knows why. They're looking into trauma. But as you say, you don't even have to have active duty. You're still in that group. So they're just really not sure. There's so many questions all about ALS and why people get it. They know there's a familial strain also. So if you have it in your family.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. You may carry the gene or whatever it is to get ALS. I actually just was reading a story about a gentleman who is the 27th person
in his family
to have ALS, and he just watched the 26th person pass away. That was his sister. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
It also apparently doesn't matter if you served in World War II, Vietnam, the first Gulf War in the early 90s, or in Iraq or Afghanistan within the last 5 years or so. military veterans from any era are twice as likely to develop ALS as those who never served.
Right.
I know, Merritt, that the ALS Association nationally has developed a report, ALS in the Military, Unexpected Consequences of Military Service, and so many studies have been done over the last 10 years or so by everyone from Harvard University to the Department of Veterans Affairs to the National Institutes of Health, all confirming that if you serve in the military during war or peace, you're twice as likely to develop ALS than somebody who didn't serve in the military. And the ALS Association nationally has been the leading organization, not only working to support veterans with ALS, but also to advance research, like you say, to get the legislature in Harrisburg and also the Senate, Congress in Washington, D.C., to get these representatives and senators' ears to help to advance research that will help learn the causes of ALS in the military and ways that it can be treated and someday even prevented. Because at one point, the state of PA, Merritt, had the most deployed soldiers than any other state in the country.
That's correct, and we still do. I was going to say that one of the upcoming events that we have is National Advocacy Day, which is May 13 through 15 in Washington, D.C., and I am honored, actually, to have met and now know a 32-year-old veteran who was just diagnosed with ALS in August, and he's going with us. And he's a great guy, and I think he has a good story to tell.
Once again, National Advocacy Day in May every year. People from across the country meet in the nation's capital in D.C. to urge Congress to continue funding for research into finding a cure for ALS. And like Merritt just mentioned, this year it's Roadmap to a Cure.
That's right.
Driving to a Treatment, a 3-day conference, Sunday, May 13th through Tuesday, May 15th. If you'd like to be a part of this National ALS Advocacy Day, it's in mid-May. If you or someone you know has or had ALS, the link to register is at www.cure4als.org. The ALS Association nationally does a great job of lobbying Congress whenever they can in D.C., advocating for those with ALS, especially the veterans. And as Merritt and I are talking about, this is the new executive director, Merritt Holland Spier, the Western PA chapter executive director, and we were discussing the state of PA has the most deployed soldiers than any other state in the country, so PA is probably going to be seeing a spike in ALS being diagnosed in more and more people because, as we discussed, if you're a veteran from any era, you are twice as likely to develop Lou Gehrig's disease as any of the rest of us who never served are. The Western PA chapter, founded in 1982, it's the only national not-for-profit health organization solely dedicated to the fight against ALS and covering all the bases: the ALS Association research and patient and community services, public education, advocacy, providing help and hope to those facing this disease. Serving 31 counties in the central western half of the state, it's literally like half of the state of Pennsylvania, and the National ALS Association office and the Western PA chapter, they operate under a shared mission to lead the fight to cure and treat ALS through global cutting-edge research and to empower people with Lou Gehrig's disease and their families to live fuller lives by providing them with compassionate care and support. And again, Lou Gehrig was the famous New York Yankee who had to leave baseball because of this devastating disease. There's no treatment, there's no cure. Life expectancy is usually 3 to 5 years after being diagnosed with ALS. I know that there's so many questions, Merritt, once a diagnosis has been come to regarding ALS. And I know that the Western PA chapter, the ALS Association, provides so many different services to those dealing with ALS and their families, especially the caregivers. And I guess, first of all, specifically, Merritt, supplying the equipment that's needed to assist those fighting ALS, like wheelchairs.
Right. We have a really robust program that helps people in need of equipment. Usually people need walkers, help walking, help with their arms, need wheelchairs pretty early on.
Yeah.
It depends what the symptom is. You can also lose your voice first.
Yes.
It's called bulbar. And we provide a whole array of communication devices, things that allow you to type and speak for you, but also if you've lost the movement in your arms and your fingers, we have something called an eye gaze system. So you just land your eyes on a letter and it will type for you. And we have several people who are using all kinds of computer devices to continue to communicate, and that's the most important thing to them. To not be able to communicate is when your mind is working fine.
Yeah, and that's the thing about ALS. It slowly takes you down, but it does not affect your vision. It does not affect your mind.
No.
So you're
sort of trapped in there.
You're trapped in your body. And
email, Facebook, writing letters. I mean, this ability to be able to use the computer when you're in that state has been a godsend for a lot of these people. It's the way they stay connected to their families and to the outside world.
Yeah, you can't talk, you can't move, you can't swallow, you can't breathe on your own. You're literally trapped, but your hearing and your vision are not affected. And as Merritt was just talking about, our special guest this morning, again, the brand new executive director of the ALS Association, Western PA chapter, Merritt Holland Spier, some of the services provided to those who have just been diagnosed with ALS: wheelchairs, lift chairs, transfer benches, speech generating devices, because ALS robs you of your ability to speak. All this provided free of charge through the Western PA chapter of the ALS Association. And also, Merritt, you guys provide partial reimbursements and insurance plan supplements. I think that's what the 80/20 program for chapter members. You guys help out as far as maybe helping to kick in some of the cash needed.
Right. When they don't have the insurance coverage they need for nutritional supplements, for transportation to and from their medical appointments, we help a lot with that. We will also pay for hospice care or respite care. And respite care
is so important.
I really want to talk about that because the caregiver, the main caregiver, and we focus a lot on them, are unbelievable people that are dedicating their lives to taking care of the one who's sick. And they really need a break.
Sure. In the ALS Association Western PA chapter, you guys also have a transportation program, taking members to and from maybe doctor's appointments, support groups. And you just referenced, Merritt, because we've mentioned this morning a bunch of times, families and caregivers. And these are the people who are as affected by a diagnosis of ALS just as much as the individual who has the disease.
We really care about the caregiver. Last year, we initiated a caregiver weekend, which allowed people to get away and relax and rejuvenate their mind, their body, their spirit.
Where was it?
It was at Seven Springs. And it really is important, I think, for caregivers out there who might be listening to take time for themselves too, because if you're not healthy and you're not in a good place, you're not going to be good for anybody else. So it's very important for the caregivers to have some, we call it respite. It really means a break from the day-to-day. We provide a program called Care Connection, where you can network with neighbors and your church community and your friends and other family members, and like spokes in a wheel, put out there all the things you need to have done: dog walked, dinner made, trip to the clinic, and people can sign up to help do all those things.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Is that the ALS Association Care Connection?
Yes,
is
that's
largely
what
what?
Yeah. So it really networks people together and takes the burden off the caregiver to have to ask people. And people always want to do something. Everyone's always saying, "Oh, let me help. Please let me do something." They want to. But sometimes you really don't want to come out and ask the person to do something. So this provides a way for them to sign up to do something.
And again, there is no cure for ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and though there is developing treatment under investigation, ALS pretty much becomes a matter of compassionate caregiving as the disease progresses. www.cure4als.org, and the phone number is 412-821-3254. And our special guest this morning is the new executive director of the Western PA chapter of the ALS Association. It's Merritt Holland Spier. My girlfriend and I have known two families locally over the years who went through the ALS experience with a loved one. In both cases, actually, it was the father in the family. And I just wanted to remind everybody else, this organization has so many resources for families and caregivers who are responsible for a loved one fighting ALS. And also, we only have like 5 minutes to go, Merritt, less than 5 minutes, so we have to put a plug in for the annual 2012 Walk to Defeat ALS. That's going to be down the road coming up Saturday morning, September 8th at the Pittsburgh Zoo and PPG Aquarium. I've participated in this event. It's a great time. It's the annual Walk to Defeat ALS. This event began in Pittsburgh. Am I correct? 1998?
Yeah. Nationally, the walk is held in every chapter. There's 42 chapters of the ALS Association. Everybody does a walk to defeat ALS. And nationally, it is the 5th largest walk in the country.
Wow.
Last year, for our walk in Pittsburgh, we had it at the Pittsburgh Zoo. We always have it at the Pittsburgh Zoo.
Yeah.
We won an award for having the best location nationally for our walk. But 3,500 people raised $410,000. It
was a great turnout last year.
It was a huge win for us. And this year we hope to surpass $500,000. We really set our sights high, and we want people to come out and participate. There's also a walk in Johnstown that we do, and that's Saturday, August 4th. So Saturday, August 4th in Johnstown, and Saturday, September 8th at the zoo in Pittsburgh.
Highland Park check-in begins at 7:30 a.m. and the walk starts at 9 a.m. and it's a 1-mile walk through the zoo and PPG Aquarium. No one is timing you. It's very leisurely, and you can also register on site that morning, September 8th, Saturday, at the zoo. Merritt, we have to put a plug in for Canop Biosciences right here in Pittsburgh on the south side. How are they helping the Western PA chapter again of the ALS Association?
Well, they're a very good friend of our organization. Besides being a very generous sponsor and donor to us, we really are working hand in hand to help people with ALS. There are a lot of the persons living with ALS that we're serving are in their study, or in the Canop Biosciences phase 3 study of a new drug, which they hope is going to extend the life of somebody with ALS, and we're all keeping our fingers crossed. In September, we'll have some more details, and we may all be jumping up for joy and celebrating.
Well, thank you very much, and a sincere salute to everyone at Canop Biosciences right here in Pittsburgh on the south side, looking for maybe not a cure, but at least a way to extend the lives of those dealing with ALS. And before Merritt leaves, in an earlier stage of her life, she worked at WQED TV here in Pittsburgh. She worked on the set of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and she knew Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers was at her wedding, right, Merritt?
That's right. He was at my wedding, and I worked with him at WQED. He and his wife were the nicest people I have ever met. He was just exactly the kind of guy in real life that he was on television. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, and I am honored to have known him.
Latrobe's own, correct?
That's correct. Grew up in Latrobe.
Mr. Rogers, what a Pittsburgh legend. What a national, international legend.
Yeah.
This has been Pittsburgh Sunday Morning. My name's Sean McDowell.